never seen something like me.
Welcome to another episode of Walking with Walfinch. Today we're kind of tuning in from Arizona, Phoenix, at the International Franchise Association's annual convention. That's a mouthful.
It really is.
and we've got the very wonderful Ingrid here. I'll let Ingrid introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Ingrid Scheider. I'm the CEO of Stay in Your Lane, and we are a fractional C-suite group that does 3 verticals. We do bolster your team as far as the next stage of growth.
Yeah.
And we have a whole C-suite team. We do a lot of AI training,
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy and fun, and we just kind of fell into that.
Yeah.
We love teaching. One of our verticals is teaching.
Yeah.
So we teach. And then we do, crap.
Yeah.
Hold on. So I work for Stay in Your Lane. I'm the CEO, and we make good brands, cult brands. That's what we say. We have 3 verticals. One is training and development. One is, like, we bolster teams. We have a whole C-suite of people that can come in and work fractionally, which is really, really fun. And then the last one's project-based work. So if you need a big project done, if you need a new book developed, we can help you do that.
Wow.
So very, very fun. Yeah.
And yeah, I know that you're working with some very interesting names at the moment on some books.
Yeah, we actually did. We rebranded Scott Greenberg and helping him tell a story, and it's been really fun.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
I'm very particularly excited about that because he's got a feature on Walfinch in there as well.
Yeah,
so.
He's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Super. So that is so interesting to me. I think that when I actually first got to hear about Stay in Your Lane by Patty. I was in one of her breakout rooms at the last convention and just started talking to her, and she was super interesting. So, what are some of the things that brands do particularly badly that you see? And that's a kind of common pitfall.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, and brands don't tell their stories well. It's like one of our superpowers, secret sauces, we say, is telling a story and also telling it consistently. It's really interesting. We do this thing called a foundational lab where we get everyone in a room, all your executive team, and ask them questions about the brand, and everybody tells a different story. Right? And it's not consistent. They don't know the values. They don't know what's the personality of the brand. That's a really important piece. Is the brand funny? Is the brand really serious? Like, is it family friendly? Like, how do you talk about things? Asking those questions. Values, another thing. Just like, what are your values? And people know the core values, but they don't really integrate them into everyday practices. And if you're going to have core values, you need to live and breathe them. Yeah,
totally. I think it's so interesting. The cult brand, that term, I think was so... I went back after the Vegas convention and said to my wife, I was like, we're going to make Walfinch a cult brand. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? But it was so interesting to me to think, well, actually, you can do that, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're an author or a care provider or an Italian restaurant, you can make that happen, right? And it's just about what you're putting out there and getting that following.
And I think it's honestly about being consistent, being trusted by your customers, right? If they know you. And cult brands don't have to be like household name brands. They can really have a niche community that's their cult, right?
And so if somebody, just Joe Blogs off the street, you specialize in franchising, I know.
Yes.
Now, if somebody came to you and said, look, I'm a young franchising brand, or an established brand for that matter, and I want to start something new with you, right? What happens? How do you do it?
We start with that foundational lab, honestly. Right. It's a 3.5-hour process where we actually ask everybody 1,000 questions. Gosh. So it's one of the most beautiful things. It's based off the Google Brand Sprint. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but we've actually really tailored it to franchising because we need to know our avatars. We need to know who to sell with, who to sell for. And franchising is so unique because you're really selling 2 things, right? You're selling your product, but you're also selling to the franchisee, right?
Totally.
So in order to market those, you have 2 different avatars. You have 2 different ways of talking about the brand.
It's very complicated.
It's very complicated.
Okay, and then so you've got all of that. You've got the avatars. You figured out the kind of who you are, what your brand values are, what you stand for. What's next? I mean, what would a brand do next to say, right? Okay, we're on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on really where they are on their journey, right? Like, are they an emerging brand and they haven't started? They don't have a location yet. Like, first thing is corporate locations. Always, we believe in really franchising. Safely and ethically, and like not building a brand that you're never gonna use, right? We see so many people sell so many units, and never open them, right? Like that's a really crappy thing to do.
It's very crappy, yeah.
So,
true,
you've taken people's money, you've taken their life savings as their franchise fee, and you never open them. That's just not fun. So, we always love proven concepts.
Yeah.
And we love people that have, like said, I've had this business and done it for 10 years, and now people need to know it and own it and love it.
Understand the unit level economics and it works. And great.
Yes.
Okay. That's super cool. Yeah. And what's the kind of the bit around building that story? How does somebody go and do that? What is that? I mean, what does a story really mean? Because you hear this batted around a lot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you need a better quality story, or you don't have a story. I remember when we started, it was the same sort of thing. I'm like, well, what does that mean? So practically, right?
Right. So I think the cool thing that we do is we extract the story. We ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
And I think any brand can do this, honestly. And you basically formulate how it started, where it's going, right? There's a little formula for writing a story of obviously an opening, but make it interesting.
Yeah.
Don't lie, obviously, but why did you get into your business? What inspired you to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I was a home care franchisee, and I just looked at the market and I thought it's archaic, and also I also thought that it wasn't done as a whole as ethically as it could have been done.
Yes.
And so those two things for me, thinking we build better quality systems and businesses and bring them into the 21st century, but also we franchise in an ethical way, and franchise not for the last 20 years, but for the next 20
yes.
years. And for me, it's that, right?
So telling your story, right? You're passionate about people.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Ethics.
Yes, yeah.
And you want to take care of people in their homes, right? Give them a better quality of life.
Yeah.
And so you've got to pull those things out of somebody and then actually formulate it all together. So it's asking a bunch of questions. It's really knowing your why.
Yeah.
Why did you do what you do? I love Simon Sinek. I love the what, how, why exercise.
Yeah, so true.
Start with Why is a great book. Yeah. But really asking people what the heck motivated you to do this?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Totally.
Right?
And so, who does it really well? What are the brands out there that actually you think, well, I'd put my finger on that and say that's a cool story and that's done well.
For brands in general, I love In-N-Out Burger. I grew up in Southern California. I think they've done a really good job.
Yeah.
Also, I think
they're a cult brand, right?
Yes. The thing with them too is really interesting is that you're going to have the same experience, so that whether you go to an In-N-Out in Arizona or an In-N-Out in California, and you know what you're going to get.
And they're not franchise, right?
No, they're not. No. I just always think of them first because it's my childhood cult brand. We have this kind of feeling of nostalgia always going there.
Yeah,
and it's
kind of sentiment, right?
Yeah, totally. So, in franchising, I think about Wild Birds Unlimited, which is a really interesting brand. Do you know them?
No, I don't.
So, again, they're a cult brand. They have a really niche group of franchisees that love bird watching. They're all birders.
Okay.
Right? But people have a passion for that and they believe in it, right? So they have these stores and they go out and people go and buy their bird seed and talk to the owners and what birds are in season right now? How do I bring these birds into my yard, right?
Yeah.
That's a cult brand, right? They have a niche following. Yeah. Not everyone's going to use them, and that's okay. You don't need the world to use you. You need the people that are in that arena or that area to buy into what you're doing.
That is super cool. I think that's so interesting, and I think that's the bit, isn't it? You don't need the world to buy you. You just need the right people, and that's kind of going back to that buyer persona of your customer.
Yes.
And,
absolutely.
All of that, right? It's, which is
who is your avatar?
Yeah, who is your avatar? And I think that's exactly the point. You don't need the world to buy you. You just need the right people that are understanding your buyer persona and the avatar, as you said. And it's just honing in on that and saying, here are my customers. If I look at my industry, at 40 clients or customers or whatever you want to call them, you're running £1 million business, basically, give or take, and that's
insane. At 40 clients,
it's bonkers, right? You don't need the world to buy you. Right?
No, those 40 people are going to make you money and be able to live, right?
And you're gonna, you'll change their lives, you'll change the lives of the care workers, but and also you'll change the life of the entrepreneur that's kind of taking the risk, right? To
absolutely.
So,
and that's the beautiful thing. The thing I love most about franchising is that we're changing people's lives, literally. Right? You're giving them a proven system that works. If they follow everything that you ask them to do, they're going to cash flow.
It's
right?
phenomenal.
Yeah.
They weren't lying. I was reading up about Arizona and Phoenix specifically, and apparently this is the most sunny metropolitan city in the whole of the USA.
Really?
I'm like,
I think that was Denver. That's where I live, but yeah, I'll take it.
You know, it's I'll ask ChatGPT again. Right?
Is that what you use, ChatGPT?
No. I use Google for that one.
Well, it's really interesting. People are using ChatGPT right now for like results and stuff like that. So that's why I asked.
So I'm going to stay away from AI because I've got Patty coming on,
okay.
and I'm going to. Patty's the president.
Yep, she's the president.
So I'm going to be digging into AI with her.
Amazing.
So how else could the average person that has a business leverage marketing systems, you know, that are, you know, what are the right things to be thinking about? I mean, I'm thinking, how does one track? What does one track? You know, when you've hired a marketing manager or you're running a marketing campaign, you know, what should you be tracking?
And marketing is so nuanced, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about vanity metrics a lot.
Yeah.
I hate vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Like, what are you costing? And again, marketing for franchising is so unique because you're marketing two different sides, right? And you really have to understand what franchising is, right? What is your cost per lead? Like, if you're buying PPC, pay-per-click ads, and Google's you're charging $35 per click, that's great. But like, what are you actually converting out of those ads? Are you actually getting franchisees, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of data to track on the franchisee side, like where you're getting that. And as far as like for your clients, like for your franchisees, conversion rates, I mean, are huge, right? But like, I don't love vanity things. Like, I don't love like, oh, this Instagram post got 3 million hits.
No one cares.
Great.
But
great.
What does that actually mean?
give you?
Right?
Yes, right. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you guys go once it's
Okay.
ready.
So FranDev and looking at that, I mean, what are the things that you're seeing in the market that are working, that are useful, that are interesting, that people aren't maybe leveraging?
I mean, I know that you didn't want to talk about AI, but I think AI is actually changing the FranDev game. We're actually going to start teaching a class called AI for franchise development.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
and I think
I'll be joining that.
Yeah, it's really a great class. And so, like, how do you make yourself more efficient and bolster your team using AI tools and, like, basically taking what you do, the minutia of the everyday repetitive tasks, and automating them so that you don't have to do them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right?
And I suppose it's that as well, right?
Yeah.
You're using it for the administrative process and thinking, well, actually, let's spend our time in better places. And okay, so that's really interesting. So you've got the kind of using AI to make the process more efficient.
Yes.
And presumably that's kind of automation and that augmentation of the whole thing. But what else is working that you see that you guys think, right, okay, well, here you go. If it was your penny,
I mean, I think building a kick-ass franchise development website, first and foremost, that actually converts.
Yeah.
And we've actually seen a bunch of things going on in the industry about different points in the website where you can actually have different lead gens.
Yeah.
So knowing that somebody's gotten to like this really back long page, knowing that they've done a bunch of due diligence and research on your company is going to give them a different place to like find out. So they're going to download this downloadable. If they've already done that, you can do this. And so like knowing where they are in the process and that this person's just like going to your website and building a form fill on the first page, or if they've actually really dug into your brand and really done some research, it's a different form fill, so you know that they've like actually researched. So.
It's interesting. There was this article I was reading, and I'm just trying to think who wrote it, but effectively what it was saying was that a good quality franchisee that is likely to convert would have spent 16 hours researching your specific brand.
Yeah, and I think it's honestly sometimes more than that, right? Like, And how many times do they have to see our brand before they actually buy our brand?
Totally, and there's so much of that you don't necessarily know or can't track and all of that kind of stuff. But you can see when they're on your site. You can look at the kind of time spent. So that's really interesting. So I really like the piece about not looking at vanity metrics and not being sort of too stressed about that. I mean, that's great because my Instagram posts only get about 12 likes, one of them is my mum. So,
but your mom is faithful.
Hey, mate, so she thinks I'm a cult brand. But So what should you be tracking? I mean, if you were advising a franchisor and saying, here you go, these are the 5 things that I would track.
I mean, I think your franchise development is working and you're tracking when you're actually selling franchises, right?
Yeah.
there's a lot of magic and a lot of moving parts to get that.
Yeah.
But like, how many franchisees are you selling? Is your pay-per-click working because you're getting leads?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a lead from Ethiopia and you're in Colorado, like, how is that going to work?
It's
right?
sort of irrelevant.
It's irrelevant, right? And how much did you pay for that lead? So what are you actually paying per lead, per franchisee that you're actually converting, right? So it's a bigger number, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you spent $20,000 on getting that franchisee.
Yeah.
Is that worth it to you or not?
Yeah.
Right? So if you've spent all of this ad money and it's $20,000 and you've only got one franchisee out of it, you have a problem.
Yeah, and that's really true. It's understanding what the cost of acquisition is, right?
Yeah, not the pay-per-click. It's the cost of acquisition. Exactly. Right?
Yeah, because you know what the pay-per-click is and the individual pieces, but really, and that number presumably changes over time.
All the time.
As well,
All the time.
And so you've got to have some sort of live way of tracking.
Yes, totally.
Which is very...
And data is so hard, I think. And, there's a company that we like, it's called Bonsai, who actually can track the customer user journey and really show you. And that's part of the thing with marketers. If they can tell you, exactly, marketing companies, exactly where you think that they're coming from.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of bullshit, right? How do you get actually to your leads? They don't know
where are they spending their time.
If they saw an Instagram ad for you about the care services from another franchisor or franchisee, excuse me, and then they're coming to the franchisor to be like, oh,
I quite like that.
That's a really interesting concept. Oh, I wonder if they franchise it. They don't know if you're going in their store and it says now franchising, and they're going in and then they're looking at your website.
But that's super cool, isn't it? Because when you think actually about the customer looking at franchising, if In-N-Out Burger started franchising, everyone would want to buy a franchise because they're loyal customers, they've built a cult brand, and it goes back to that branding piece as well, I suppose. They're building a kick-ass website, but also building a kick-ass brand, right? Because actually that's what people are getting into. That's what they're buying. Track, or what you think is useful.
It's a really kind of antiquated, hard answer, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, I struggle with answering that question because people really say that they're tracking shit, and it doesn't matter. Right? You want to know, are your customers coming into the store?
So here we go. Here's a question, right? How does someone know whether they've got a good marketing campaign or a bad one?
That's great.
Yeah. Cool. Right. I think we're sort of ready here. Yeah, I'm enrolling. Oh, cool. Okay. So Ingrid, how does somebody know when they've got a good marketing campaign going on as opposed to a bad one?
That's a really great question. I think it's down to consumer research, right?
Yeah.
It's what has worked in the past.
Yeah.
Also being innovative and creative. I love the weird, quirky things, which is kind of fun, right? But how do you tell your story in a better way? And then what's the ROI on that? Are you seeing people come in? Are you seeing conversion rates, right? Conversion is the biggest thing with any marketer, right? If you're running a marketing campaign and you're getting 70 new clients, did it work?
Yeah.
Right? But if your click rate is really high, or if it's not converting, you know that there's an issue, right? Conversion is everything. And that's a really nuanced question and a big, huge thing where you're
right? Because there's so many things that everyone talks about, but actually you're getting down to brass tacks, and that's something that I think entrepreneurs can really get behind.
Well, it's money,
is
right?
It making money
is
or
it
not?
making money or not?
Right, I'm spending £1 or $1, am I getting $2 back? And that's it,
Absolutely.
Which is super cool. By the way, this thing over here that we're underneath, we're at the Civic Park over here.
I kind of feel like I'm Dorothy in a tornado, maybe.
It feels like that, but
Wizard
apparently
of
it lights up at night, so we'll have to come back here later.
Yeah.
But it's super cool. So, so what would be the kind of actionable thing that someone could walk away with, having listened to this thing today and thinking, right, okay, these are the things that I'm going to go away and I'm going to do. I need to build a cult brand. I need to build a kick-ass website. I'm going to ask you in a second, what that means.
Yeah.
But what are the kind of 2 things that somebody could, or 3 things that someone could walk away today and say, here we go. I'm going to action this stuff, and this is what's going to help.
I think the first thing is to know, read the Simon Sinek book, about, start with why.
Yeah.
Why are you doing what you're doing? That's so important, to understand that.
Yeah.
Secondly, get your whole team on the same page.
Yeah.
If everybody's telling a different story, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we see it so often.
Yeah.
So often, especially with older brands that have just kept growing.
Just keep saying the same thing.
Yes. So that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Thirdly, really dig into what you're spending your marketing dollars on, but how they're converting.
Yeah.
So, great, you paid $3.33 per lead, but is that making you money?
Yeah. Yeah.
if they're clicking on your ad, is it actually converting?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So, and anyone who says they have a dashboard for everything is a liar.
Right. And it's really interesting. I think one of the things that you were saying to me earlier off the show was that it's an antiquated model to look at dashboards in the kind of conventional sense. And that really resonates with me because it's just information numbers, but actually really what you care about is what am I spending, where am I spending it, is it converting?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if not, then is my story wrong? Like what's wrong? Something's wrong somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have disconnects, right?
Yeah,
It's like the brain where there's all these wires. Yeah. You got to connect them all together to make it work.
It's so true. And so what is the definition of a kick-ass website? I mean, how does one do that? That's
a really great question. I think it's answering the questions that your consumers or your franchisees want to know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's so inspiring about Walfinch? Why do they want to be a Walfinch franchisee? If you know that, like, obviously we can't always talk about numbers in the United States because of the FDD, but like we can talk about our item 19, and if we have those numbers in the documents, like, and showing them what they can make, it's huge, right?
And it's really interesting. I was at the Emerging Franchisor Boot Camp yesterday, and one of the things that they were really talking about was unit level economics, and it's all about kind of making sure that the end franchisee is profitable.
Yes.
Because if that entrepreneur that's taking the risk, that is buying into the brand, isn't profitable, which is the case for a lot of franchises,
yes, absolutely,
or businesses in general, you know, that is the key thing, right? You know, are they making money or not?
And, well, and honestly, what makes a franchisee happy?
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, they're an entrepreneur at the end of the day, right? It's pennies in the bank, right?
Yeah.
It's and that's it. And it's
hopefully dollars.
Well, you know, it's lots of pennies.
Trillions of pennies.
I'm a simple man, right? Right? You know, I have one suit, right? So, no, and I think that's really it. You know, and it's all about unit level economics and really thinking about, well, actually, do I understand them as a franchisor?
Yes.
And I think, you know, I mean, for me, I think it comes back down to that. You need a wonderful story, and I really, you know, you and I had a call about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I never sort of thanked you for it because it was just an exploratory conversation, but it got me thinking so much about what does the brand mean? You know, what does it stand for? What does it look like? And all of that. And I think, you know, you've got the kind of brand guidelines and what font am I using and all of that, you know, stuff.
Yeah, actually, which is important, right? Yeah. But not the most important.
It's hygiene.
Yes,
you know,
it's hygiene.
You know, you know, but it's what's underneath that, right? You know,
absolutely.
And it's kind of getting right under the bonnet, basically.
Absolutely. And I think culture's a big part of that too, right? Like, if you're creating a good culture and people are making money, right? And they actually like each other, if you actually give a damn about your franchise like that makes a big difference, right?
And then it's about singing that story, right? You know, and bottling
absolutely.
It. So, and it's the same, I suppose, for the franchisee. You know, and it's sort of saying, well, okay, what are you doing in that one unit, one location, and how do we bottle that and then ship that out?
And when you're marketing to those franchisees, you really have to keep all of that in mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, not just picking a warm body because they want to buy your company.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And we see some people doing that. Like, sure, I'll sell a franchise to anyone.
Yeah.
But are they a culture fit?
Yeah.
Like, will they follow your marketing plans?
It's so
will
true.
I mean, will they do everything that you ask of them to be successful, or are they going to be rogue? And they're going to call their own shots.
I mean, in the last 12 months, I've said more no's than yeses.
Really?
And it's painful because
because you want to sell a franchise, right?
You know, and that's and you want to, you know, the ego part of it is, you know, I want to grow my numbers, and the bank balance part of it is it's quite nice to collect a check.
Yeah.
But are they the right person? Are they going to build the brand in the same way that you know, the sort of the franchisees are a good cultural fit with?
Yeah.
And if they won't, then we've got a real problem.
I was talking to the COO of Shuck and Shack last night about this exact same thing. And I don't know if you know Shuck and Shack, but they're a full restaurant brand. Yeah. And she was telling me, like, their first group of franchisees are so different than their second group of franchisees. Okay. And how do you continue to get those same type of franchisees that really embrace the culture and still want to hustle, even though it's more of an established name, right?
Yeah.
So it's just such a different. And a lot of times, your first franchisees are going to be the owner-operators, right?
Yeah. And
that second generation could just have operators in their locations.
Yeah.
And how do you get the right operators to actually continue to tell your story?
And getting the training right for that, and saying, well, how does that look? And you know, because I think there's so much of that now. You know, well, you know, in our operations manual, we really focus on video and so on, because I think it's all about how people are consuming it, but also you can literally show people how to do something, right? You know, and are we doing that enough? And we've got the ability to do that now, but do we leverage it enough? And I think that's emerging brands. After you.
Thank you.
If let's talk about an emerging brand that is short on funds, or it doesn't have the huge sort of McDonald's money to build brand and do all of the stuff. How do they do that?
Okay.
What's the resources?
I love this question because I'm a super fan of scrappy brands, right? And we've worked for some. Patty and I actually built a scrappy brand together. Yeah. So we, using AI and tools to bolster your team, right? Like using resources to make things easier. Yeah. I also love things like, there's a company called Subtle Strauss, and they actually house all your franchise marketing, so your franchisees can go in and change anything that they need to change under brand standards. Yeah. And then it takes your marketing person out of the situation. Yeah. I also think right now, what we're doing is fractional C-suite companies. We have a fractional C-suite, so you can hire us, the whole team, to bolster your team and grow it. Okay. And what you're getting with that is maybe the same rate that you'd be paying somebody who's in-house. Yeah. But we're more efficient. We're not going to make the same mistakes. Yeah. Yeah. We have the experience, right? So fractional C-suite is where it's at right now, especially if you need a badass marketer or you need a badass franchise development person. Filling those seats with somebody who's doing the job a fourth of the time but doing it right is huge.
And that's amazing, actually.
Yes.
And I think, if I think back to all the businesses I've started, I've often started them with, just buying in people. Yeah. Rather than having full-time people, you think, well, okay, I need 15 hours of that, I need 10 hours of that, and so on. Huge. Which is actually a great way to leverage, right? It keeps your business lean.
Well, and you're getting somebody who has experience in franchising, who knows what they're doing, right?
Totally.
Yeah, how many dollars have you made? There was a case study yesterday, which you probably missed, but it was at the ALC, and they were talking about this brand that had spent $500,000 wasted on a tech stack because they were trying to figure out what was going on.
Brutal.
Right? And if you had somebody who knew tech, who wasn't just throwing dollars after it to try to figure it out, how much money does that save you in the long run, right? So it may be an expense at the front end, but in the back end, it's going to save you...
It's proper.
A ton, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is super cool. So, Ingrid... First of all, last questions.
Okay.
Right? So, one actionable item that will get our viewers to the next kind of milestone level. What is a one thing that everyone could double down on and say, I'm going to do this, and that's going to take me to the next level?
It's a great question. I think mentorship is a huge thing. Yeah. Asking questions. The franchise community is so giving and so resourceful, right? Yeah. If you don't know something, ask somebody who does. Yeah. And that's how I've built my life and my career is by asking questions and by asking people who know it better than me. There's so many people that I look up to. I'm like, that person is so much more efficient. That person is so much better, right? Yeah, yeah. And asking them the secret sauce. What is it that bolsters your team? How do I grow? What do I need to do? Doubling down on being really honest with yourself and saying, I'm really good at this, but I suck at this. Yeah. How do I fix this?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, in many ways, I read something once. If you're a grade D at something, all the work in the world is going to make you a B. But if you're a B at something, you can get to an A or an A star, right?
That's exactly what it is, yeah.
And actually, it's what are we focusing on and what are we outsourcing to someone else? And then, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, we are at stayinyourlaneco.com because Stay in Your Lane was $1 million, and I was I'm not paying for that.
Reasonable.
Yeah. So stayinyourlaneco.com, and then also my email is ingrid@stayinyourlaneco.com, and I'm also super, super active on LinkedIn.
Okay, yes,
as you know.
Yeah, I know. You always get my like. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining.
So good to meet you face to face.
I'm really looking forward to all the drinks as well.
We'll see each other this whole week. Yeah. Have a good one.
Thank you. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so excited about putting another episode of Walking with Walfinch out there and helping you build your brand. Until next time, see you soon.